So hey everybody, I'm really excited. We have a very esteemed group of panelists here today. I'm honored to be asked to chair this session. So let's maybe first start with some quick introductions and maybe who you are, obviously the company you work for, people could see that, but maybe a little bit about your role at your respective organizations. I'll start, Ted Shorter, CTO at Keyfactor, responsible for product strategy and roadmaps. Right.
Thank you, Ted. First, good morning, everyone. Come on, guys. All right. Yeah. Need the energy and the coffee. Name is Harishankar. I'm an IBM fellow within the IBM research team, and I lead the quantum safe incubation, as we call it, within IBM research. As part of that, we have been working on it for about 5-6 years now, and I've been at it personally for about 4+ years, developing technologies, developing methodologies, evangelizing primarily in many cases, and it's great to see an excellent turnout such as this. It's gratifying to see that our message is getting across. So that's my background.
Vladimir.
And I'm Vladimir. I'm the VP of Cryptographic R&D at InfoSec Global, and my role basically includes taking care of anything that is crypto related, going anywhere from the ideas that come up to managing our cryptographic team, and also working on various standardization, including collaboration with NIST, NCCOE, Quantum Safe Canada, and I've been into PQC space over a decade. Actually, my formal training is at Cryptography from UC Waterloo. Did my PhD there, focusing on post-quantum before it became mainstream, and I've been involved in this space ever since.
Great, Blair.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Blair Canavan. Like Vladimir, been in this space post-quantum for a few years now, and actually a colleague and former colleague. So very excited to be here. I've been doing this a long time, longer than I think, and I think Ray and I talked about this. I think we were the guys before cell phones were in everyone's pockets, but I've been in the quantum space now with Thales just over 5 years, and prior to that, but I've been in the actual HSM space. I'm one of the original 10 guys that built this thing called Luna that you might be able to see around the corner here today. So it's been a long road, but here we are talking about post-quantum, so I'm pretty excited to tell you that I can bring at least a few more years of where we've been and where we're going. So looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, I noticed there is a lot of gray hair up on the
a
stage.
lot more. Thanks for
hopefully there's not too much more by the time we're done with all the quantum transition.
In the book that you guys have in front of you, there was a page towards the end where I saw one character saying, I installed the 56K modem back when, right? And I'm like, oh man, I remember using 1200 baud modem. So
yeah.
that guy is far ahead of me.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the session is called It Takes a Village. I think that, as we started preparing for this, we realized there's actually multiple villages involved, and so we'll talk about a few of those at this point. I think the first one is, there's this village of what I would call kind of the frontline vendors, right? Folks like our organizations, and we're certainly not the only ones, but that are really directly a part of this transition to quantum. We do have one slide. I think if we could put that up, we can kind of talk through just kind of our own respective organizations and the roles that we play in those sorts of things. And again, we're not the only vendors doing this, but and we'll get to that. That's another village that we'll get to in a second. But maybe we'll start with Ray talking about the parts of this transition that the IBM has to play.
All the 7 steps would be seriously.
Right.
Seriously, I mean, as you know, IBM has a number of different divisions, right? Yeah. Just to keep it simple, if you look at the research side of where I'm engaged in, we, as I indicated earlier, try to provide underlying technologies, capabilities, methodologies that our different brands can use. So if you look at the risk assessment and creating an inventory and creating automation, all of that is sort of the underpinning of that is a repeatable methodology that our consulting team can use. Mm-hmm. And we build assets that the consulting team can use to help automate, accelerate this progress. And we also, where appropriate, convert them into products. So the inventory, for example, or the management of that, monitoring ongoing progress, and remediating the changes that you need to make. So when I say all 7 steps, I'm not being flippant, I'm being true in that, hey, we are engaged in all 7 of this in one way, shape, or form. But let me also be clear, partners like Keyfactor and InfoSec Global and Thales are important for us because it is not, as you said, a single entity who can do this. It takes a village. So when I say we execute these steps, we execute these in collaboration and partnership with many of the entities present in this room.
Yeah, great. Vladimir.
Yes, so we are involved in quite a few steps that are listed over here, but I would say the two major ones where we're the deepest is step number 2 and step number 7. So step number 2 is around creating crypto inventory. So we have a crypto inventory tool that is capable of going deep into the ecosystem, scanning networks, scanning end hosts, going all the way down to binaries to find cryptographic risks. And not only, quantum risk, but all the cryptographic risks, let's say for finding MD5 or SHA-1, et cetera, right? That's a current risk that needs to be taken care of. And also, then going to step number 7 around crypto-agility, right? Really, the way the crypto has been built over the past, 3-4 decades, it's been built to be static, but now we can see that there's changes happening all the time. For instance, just recently, NIST has made a call for SLH DSA to talk about parameters. That means there might be tweaks after it has been standardized. So the world is really changing to the fact that cryptography needs to be flexible. And so we have built the crypto-agility platform to be able to swap crypto on the fly, which will help remediate as well as change as the standards are changing.
Great. And Blair?
I couldn't be more thrilled to be sitting with my colleagues here because it takes a village, like we've all said, but it takes a long time. But it's not just exchanging logos. It's not just saying, oh, we know them, we work with. There's so much more under the surface that we've been doing. This is a windy road ahead for all of us in this room. You can predict all you want, you can pontificate all you want, but the net of this adventure we're all undertaking is that we don't know until we get to that next curve in the road where we're going to be. And one of the most important elements that I'm seeing in firsthand and working with all of our friends here in our consortiums and so on is it's probably the first time that most of these organizations, including people in this room, have actually done an inventory or actually undertaken such an MRI, if you will, of their entire organization. So this is actually not necessarily just a journey to PQC, it's about crypto hygiene. And for those of us who have been around a long time you know in your organization, you've got old crypto, you've got deprecated crypto, you've got custom crypto, which is the two worst words to put beside each other that I can possibly say. And we're seeing it.
It's got a chill down my spine when you said that.
Yeah. So I would agree and vehemently agree with everybody here. We're seeing things that we've never seen before and astonished by some of the results that we're seeing. And by the way, no fault to anyone in the room. It's been working and it still works. It isn't broken. And we all have to remember that RSA and ECC, they're not the problem here. This isn't the issue that we're undertaking. But what we are finding is, that old SHA stuff that you have lying around, or you're still running RSA 1024, or we're finding out that as we move forward, you've got to clean up your act before you get going on this PQC journey. So if I'm not a big fan, I don't think it's pretty clear that all of us together, once we get that remediation, or sorry, that MRI result, that C-bomb, we all have for the first time, visibility in how we're going to address it going forward. So I think that's a fringe benefit of all this.
Yeah. And the next village that occurred to me is this village of standards, right? We've had a lot of good conversation about standards already this week, but both IBM and InfoSec Global have been also on the front lines of just the algorithmic standards and that sort of thing too. So I don't know if maybe Vladimir, you want to go first and just talk about some of the algorithmic work. I work with a lot of cryptographers. I'm not one, so I'm always impressed to be in the presence of people who really get that deep into the math.
Yeah. So when we talk about the standards, right, the NIST standardization process for post-quantum crypto has started back in 2016, and it took them all the way to August of 2024 to standardize the first set. And it's important to understand it's the first set. Because again, before what happened, NIST was standardized one algorithm, you'd go from triple DES to AES, you'd go from RSA to ECC. These were complicated but way simpler changes. Now with PQC standardization, NIST has standardized first set. There's going to be more coming from round 4. NIST realized this is not enough. They're standardizing a parallel track of digital signatures, which is running, and nobody knows how many more standards are going to be coming up. Now, there's changes to standards after they have been finalized happening along the way. So it's a very different world. We're going to be going through a way more complicated transition than we've ever seen in cryptographic history. That's why it takes all of us to work together, because the problem is enormously huge. And at this point, we understand that it's enormously huge, but we don't even have probably the good feeling of how huge it is, because it's probably way bigger than we can even anticipate at the moment. That's why we need to work together on that. And talking on the standard side, NIST realized that it's not enough to just give a set of algorithms. They've started a separate standardization process, so to say, by NCCOE, which is around migration to PQC. Right. So migration itself, one thing is algorithms. You can get into the deep, complicated math in there, that's fine. The mathematicians, can do this, we can understand that, but changing that, it's a different engineering problem, and it's a very complicated one. So the PQC migration process has started off as first track is the crypto inventory, and then the second track is interoperability, and there's going to be more tracks coming up. So the community came together to say, how do we actually do this migration? Because there's a lot of questions and a lot of unknowns and a lot of complications in that direction. So we're heavily involved in the whole migration process as well. And I would probably say right now, it's a bigger deal than just the algorithms themselves.
Right, yeah, go ahead.
A couple of points to add and a shameless pitch to make about IBM, which is of the first 4 algorithms that were selected for standardization, 3 of them were created by IBMers working with the industry and the academia, and then now the creator of the 4th one also happens to work for IBM now. So
is that you hired them after? Is that
he chose to come to IBM?
Got it.
To
Okay,
work
gotcha.
with us.
Okay.
So
okay. Well, and there's even more history there, right? Because I think back to the original cryptographic standard, DES, right? Came out of IBM, 1972. Right?
We go back to what was called Lucifer.
Yeah.
In the 1960s or so. So we have a pretty strong cryptographic department, and I know you work with quite a few of them, Vladimir. So we have a history of creating cryptographic algorithms, and yes, there's fully homomorphic encryption that came out of that, which is not part of PQC per se, but more encryption work that's being done. And we also have 3 horses in the race for the 2nd or 4th round, right, of, having selected the first so many, they created a submission for the next round of algorithms. Because these are all different kind of math. Because one thing I do want to point out is the whole reason we are sitting here talking about this, because we put all our eggs in one basket called prime factorization. And that got broken. Right? Now here we are, right? How do we not make sure that same mistake doesn't happen in terms of putting all our eggs in one basket? So all these algorithms, not most of these algorithms, have different kind of math problems. So even if one were to be solved, God forbid, in the future, we have different ways to address it. So that's about the algorithms themselves. Talking of standards, I'll make one more quick point, which is if you look at the inventory step here and the monitoring of ongoing progress, there has to be a standard way by which you can represent this inventory. So we created a cryptographic bill of materials standard, which is an extension of the SBOM. So this was adopted by Cyclone DX, I think 1.6, and so it is becoming a standard that many vendors as well as clients are beginning to adopt. So the point is not just standards around algorithms, but also standards around its consumption, its usage, and its applicability within the various ecosystem.
Absolutely, very, very well said. I think we're done with the slide, but I think the other point with that though is this village involves companies that are often competitive with each other needing to work together. And I don't know if, Blair, you want to talk a little bit about, this is the part where Blair and I just name each other's competitors. But a few of them are in the room, but the point being that like we all have to work together on this, right?
Yeah, a lot of us experience this firsthand. You say, be careful what you say about your competition. You might be working there someday. So
yeah, true.
I'm very open and frank with people. We're friends with our other organizations. Why? Because we've got to get along. You can compete, but there's no advantage for us to go proprietary or go down a path that limits the choices that customers have. I think that's a common practice. I hope so, and I hope I'm not already repeating what you already know, but we're very open. And in fact, you mentioned the NCCOE, we have to work with all of these organizations. Right. And You know, as I said to you, Ted, we've talked about this a number of times. It makes me a little sad when we're not in step with each other. So we do help each other from time to time. And I love the spirit of cooperation and collaboration, certainly at NCCOE, but all over the world. This isn't just limited to North America. This is where we operate in, like Ray would say, in how many countries? All of them? Right. So I think Thales isn't quite the same size as IBM, but, and we are, by the way, I got to plug, we are the guys that co-wrote Falcon. I don't know. I had nothing to do with it, but I do know some smart cryptographers that did. But my point is, we've got to get through this together, and then the rest of that will sort itself out. So I hope I gave the feeling of, I'm a big believer in collaboration, so let's keep that going.
Yeah, no, and I think it's really well said. I think that also brings us to the third village that I was thinking of is, you know, if you know most of you in the room in IT organizations, you know, you can't really. There's a lot of work you can do at the beginning. You can do, you know, inventory, you can plan, you can so forth, but you really can't start making your organization quantum resistant until you start deploying, you know, a new version of Microsoft Windows that has support for the algorithms, or a new version of Apple Mac OS and Android and so forth. And so there's this larger vendor community that all needs to move, as you said, Blair, in lockstep. And I guess I'm just, you know, if you have thoughts, you know, maybe start with you, Ray, on like just how can we, as both the royal we of, you know, those of us on stage and organizations, but also everyone else in this room that are aware of all of this, how can we help everyone really transition to, you know, to...
I think of all the villages, Ted, that is the most significant one,
sure,
if I may say.
It's the biggest.
The biggest one, because it's complex. Because if you step back and look at it, an enterprise deals with a whole slew of ecosystem vendors, partners, service providers, you know, device manufacturers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Every single one of them, you need to be cognizant of A, who they are, and what changes they need to make, and have they made the changes? Are they compatible with what you need to do? And can you truly claim, or when can you truly claim to be quantum safe? And is that verifiably quantum safe? So would I believe a vendor if they said, I'm quantum safe and we go with it, or would you need a mechanism to verify it? So you think through all of this and say, man, this is pretty complex. How am I going to, you know, get this done? That is where, you know, the ecosystem comes in. That is where the partnership and collaboration comes in. And one of the things, and I saw many folks already talk about the PKI consortium, and then, you know, there is, you know, Quantum Safe Financial Forum in Europe, and there's so many of these consortiums, and we are a strong believer in these consortiums. So we kicked off, you know, 2.5 years ago, the first one in the space for telco, because telco, every company in the world ends up using telco as their underpinning. So we need to start with who is taking care of what needs to be done in the telco space. And we brought together Vodafone, GSMA, and IBM as the key anchor tenants, if you will, of that consortium. And now that post-quantum telco network task force has about 60+ members who would otherwise be competing in the marketplace, but they're also partners in this because they learn from each other. They're publishing some of the, you know, best practices and pretty good set of artifacts that anyone can benefit from. So we've also sponsored payment consortia in that space. We are looking to do it in healthcare, critical infrastructure, and, you know, in the financial services where I tend to focus a bit on, there is FSISAC in the North American space. There's, I already mentioned Quantum Safe Financial Forum. All of these are putting out material that the whole industry can benefit from. So even if you're not in the industry, I'd urge you to go be a part of that, learn from it, participate from it, contribute to it, and because it definitely takes a village for us to move the ball forward.
For sure. I don't know if Blair or Vladimir, you have more to add on that.
Yeah, there's a few things. It's great what Ray has mentioned about, you know, checking what you're getting from other vendors. Let's say Microsoft told you, you know, I'm giving you this quantum safe. It's not that you're not trusting them, maybe they missed something, right? Yeah. So you need to have a way to verify it. That's why, for example, our tool is able to do binary analysis of the code, because you're not going to have source code of what Microsoft provides to you. So you really need to make sure you scan it and you can actually see any third-party applications you have in your ecosystem to still understand what kind of cryptography they have. You know, maybe they're not lying, they just missed it, and you want to tell them, you know what, this software you're giving me, it's not quantum safe in these places. Can you please fix it, right? So you should be communicating back. to the vendors. Another thing is, again, going back to talking about how we work as a village. As an example, with Thales, we've built a connector of our scan tool to talk to Thales Luna HSM, right, and Cipher Trust. So we're able to actually communicate and say, you know what, we can talk whenever a client is using Thales product, and if the client is misusing it, we're able to say that. Let's say they stored, even if we're not talking about post-quantum, if we're talking about any other cryptographic aspects, let's say we found a private key that is not inside an HSM, we're going to say, you know what, this key is supposed to be inside an HSM, you forgot to place it in there.
Great. Anything to add, Blair? Or if not, I can.
This is such a layup after this comment. It's super interesting to all of us to find out what we thought we knew, and we're finding this firsthand that we thought our products were being utilized the way that they were designed, or they're being used to the extent that they're not. They're being so we find that use what you've got, like take it, basically optimize what you've already invested in. So key repatriation or common best practices, we're seeing now a change. I guess it's change management, but we're starting to see organizations realize that maybe they weren't persistent or consistent by the way they manage their keys. So key management now is brought in. And what's key management all about? Well, did you know you shouldn't be managing your certificates in a spreadsheet? We all kind of knew that, didn't we? Well, Keyfactor has a solution for that. So we're finding that now we can start to promote what you already have, utilize it better, but make it persistent across your organization. We're absolutely blown away by some of the results from these undertakings, because it's astonishing that you, even as an organization like us or IBM, you think they're using it, or you're using it, or your colleagues are using it the way it was designed. So I emphasize, do undertake this, because I think it will be absolutely one of the best things you'll see in your organization's change.
Well, and I think quantum aside, there's a lot of good reasons to have good cryptographic hygiene, and we've all been sort of neglecting that a little bit. It hasn't been the brightest burning fire, but quantum is now making it, it's shining a light on that more. So I have a number of questions just to kind of keep the conversation going, take advantage of our esteemed colleagues being here. If there are questions, please feel free to submit them in the app. I do have my phone. I'll take a look at those in a second. But maybe we can start just for the group. Maybe start with you, Ray. Like, what do you foresee as potentially some of the biggest challenges that organizations are going to face as they try to move through from RSA and ECC to this more crypto-agile world?
As part of the work that we've been doing for the last 3-4 years, I talked about evangelization. We also work very closely with clients. So what I'm about to say is based on the experience we have had over the past 2+ years in working with a number of clients, small, large financial services, and across the industry. I think, again, I like to simplify things into one or two that we can focus on. The biggest problem that people face initially was awareness. They had no clue what it was about, right? And they were, I hate this, but they make a parallel to Y2K, right? As if things can happen on one day and then, immediately things, switch over. Right. Which also leads to believe that there is a single solution that one can apply, right? That is not the case here. So understanding that this is not the same as Y2K and that it is a complex set of transformation is a challenge. At the same time, every one of us here knows that the moment we say it's too complex, what is it, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, we can start with it, but that never takes you further, right? So how do you make sure that this is simplified to the state where clients can begin to act? Where do I begin? That is the biggest question that clients are asking. Not the how part. We can deal with the how part. That's what we are good at doing. But communicating the strategy to the client. How do I start? What is good for me? How can I plan this out? What does the board need to know? Because this is not a, $100 million, do it in 2 years, 3 years kind of a project. But you got to start now and begin doing it, in a very measured manner over the next 4 or 5 years or so. That is where the challenge is.
Yeah, Vladimir.
Yeah, to add to Ray, right? When you're communicating to the client what needs to be done, that's one thing. But let's look from client perspective. Let's say there's some kind of a bank, etc. And usually it would be probably CISO who would be responsible. Now, what's a lifetime of a CISO in a company? 2, 3 years? And when you're talking to them about, 5 to 10 year roadmap, CISO is going to do what? He's going to say, well, it's going to be beyond my time. Now, if it's going to be CISO after CISO after CISO, all of them are going to be, saying, oh, it doesn't affect me. And that's a big problem that we're seeing within the organizations as well.
Yeah. Blair?
I love all this dialogue. We could talk about this particular subject for hours, but I'll leave that. I think what I'm seeing is skepticism, which is healthy, has to be managed. And so oftentimes we'll all sit in a room and we'll hypothesize and we'll talk about we're trying to predict the future in real time. We're all watching this. We're no different than anyone sitting in this room. We know what's going on with the quantum computing paradigm and the advances, but we're still trying to predict the future here. What I recommend is stop predicting and to Jaime's point, stop procrastinating. It's not a great plan. We need to start to do, even if it's small steps, and don't feel badly if you're a little bit behind. You'll catch up. And don't feel badly if you don't have people internally. We'll find you those people. There's enough horsepower in this world right now that is focused on this problem that if you reach out, you'd be surprised. I think Jaime and many of us on this stage here are like the Kevin Bacons of quantum. It's just 1 degree from somebody. We'll connect
Kevin
you.
Bacons of quantum. That's the quote of the week. Yes.
Are you Kevin Bacon? Because I can't remember. One of us. I think it's you.
I will never be confused for Kevin Bacon. But I think, because there was, Ray, you mentioned, like there's talk about Q Day or like when is this going to happen? I think the other part, NIST and others have put these deprecation dates of things like 2030. To your point, I talked with a customer last week. I think the other question is just, even if you start now, how long is it realistically going to take some of these large organizations and companies that are here to actually, if you go as fast as you possibly can, how long is it realistically going to take to get through that transition? I think that's an interesting thing to see what you guys think.
This is where I give the consultative answer of it depends, right? Because it depends on the complexity of the organization itself and how organized they want to approach this. I wouldn't say that they need to get this the fastest, but they need to be more organized and systematic in doing this, identifying the priorities, figuring out what to address first and how to go about doing it, and having a plan to execute and sticking to it will probably be the first step. And we believe that it will take about average of 5 to 7 years because it's not just them doing it, it's the ecosystem partners being ready as well. So it will take that amount of time frame to really get there, but we need to start planning now.
Yeah. Which means we're not going to make 2030. I guess that's kind of the point that
I don't
starting
believe,
to set in with me that
I don't believe 2030 is the date when we are going to have a cryptographically relevant quantum computer.
Okay.
It's going to be mid-2030s.
Okay.
But one thing I do want to take this opportunity to clarify though, what people get confused is a quantum computer capable of doing some useful business or adding business value will appear in the 2030s. Early 2030, it will be there.
Yeah, and right? IBM is, of course, one of the players working on
that. We believe we'll have error correction in 2029. And you may have read Arvind Krishna, our CEO, talk about this yesterday or the day before, where he said we will have coherent time of about 1 millisecond by that time, which is a lot if you think about it, which means we can create business value out of that. That will come first. You will begin to see the impact in batteries or chemistry or materials. Yep. But a cryptographically relevant quantum computer will follow that after several years.
Okay.
There are two different inflection points.
So it looks like we got about a minute left, but quick thoughts on that topic, or just we could start with maybe final words on takeaways and that sort of thing.
Well, on a timeline topic, right? So just to add something very little from history, so we can do some relativity. How many years did it take for organizations to migrate from SHA-1 to SHA-2? Mathematically, a very simple transition, 5 to 10 years for a large organization to move. Now we're saying change all of your public key crypto with way more complicated environment than it used to be back when SHA-1 to SHA-2 migration was taking place. So realistically, if you don't apply any new methods, talking about inventory, automated tools, agility, etc., the approximation is like 10 to 15 years, which is way beyond any timelines by when you need to be migrated. And last few thoughts, just again, coming back to the topic of our panel, we really need to work together. If you look back at our, the roadmap that was placed there, how many organizations can do all 7 steps? I doubt that a single organization is able to do this. So really, we need to come together. We need to tackle them. It is a huge problem. It's a complicated problem, but it can be solved if we approach it in the correct way together.
Great. Blair, we're going to let you have the last word.
And I'll make it quick. I just have 2 words, deep seek. And I know that everybody would love to debate this topic, and it's a wonderful conversation with friends, family, and colleagues, but we didn't see that coming like we thought we should have. And so I have this, I feel this, and Ray makes a great point. We can predict and we can hope to some extent that we have more time, but we also don't see that paradigm from our, from the Chinese paradigm entity itself. So I always have to kind of look at this pragmatically and say, just get on the path, and we can't control that future. We can't control that variable, and that's simple. What's outside of your control, you can't plan. So I really truly believe that we're on the right path, and try not to get too distracted by watching the quantum news every day.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you to the panelists. This was just a fantastic group. I love this conversation. A lot of brain power up here on stage, myself not included. And just a thank you all for participating. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.